From our Toronto studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Zahra Syed. Our top story tonight. U.S. human rights organization Justice for All today released a major report which asserts that Israel is committing the genocide of Palestinians. It extensively documents statements by Israeli leaders showing their intent to engage in this crime. The 90-page report is authored by Justice for All human rights lawyer Aidan Alexio. It includes a statement from 3 Nobel Peace Laureates who say what is happening in Gaza right now is a textbook case of how genocide happens. It goes on to say that the dehumanization of Palestinians is leading to their annihilation. Myreed Maguire of Ireland, Adolfo Perez Esquivel of Argentina, and Tawakkul Karman of Yemen are amongst the Nobel laureates who signed the statement. International Day to Combat Islamophobia was observed today, highlighting global efforts to address the surge in anti-Muslim sentiment. President Joe Biden has pledged to combat Islamophobia in the United States, detailing administrative measures. He attributed the ugly resurgence of Islamophobia to the war in Gaza. Biden recalled the death of Wadia al-Fayoum, a 6-year-old Palestinian-American boy who was brutally killed in his own home last fall by a neighbor. The president said his administration is drafting the first ever national strategy to combat Islamophobia and related forms of bias and discrimination. Its goal is to mobilize a society-wide effort to counter all forms of hate, discrimination, and bias against Muslim, Sikh, South Asian, and Arab American communities. Today also coincided with the first European Union coordination meeting on combating anti-Muslim hatred in France. The United Nations General Assembly designated March 15th as International Day to Combat Islamophobia 2 years ago to promote tolerance and peace across religions and beliefs. The day was chosen to commemorate the 2019 Christchurch mosque shootings in New Zealand, in which a white supremacist murdered 51 Muslim worshippers. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation initially marked the day in 2021, advocating for its recognition by the UN. Although many Chicago Muslims and Palestinians refused to meet a White House delegation on Thursday, the meetings did take place. A White House official formally responded to a Muslim Network TV's query, confirming that senior White House officials held a series of meetings with community leaders in Chicago. Officials added that it was a part of an ongoing process to engage with communities impacted by Israel's war on Gaza. A letter with nearly 50 signatories published Thursday said such meetings are pointless. It read, "The White House already knows the position of the aforementioned groups and our allies across the nation." Senior White House members, including Tom Perez and liaison to American Muslim communities Mazen Basrawi, were amongst those set to meet with the members of the Palestinian American and Muslim communities. Israel killed at least 25 Palestinians and injured over 150 in northern Gaza City after attacking a crowd waiting for a humanitarian aid on Thursday. The Palestinian Health Ministry condemned the attack as a premeditated massacre. Reports from witnesses said an Israeli military Apache helicopter fired down on people waiting to collect food. The Israeli military denied responsibility, alleging armed Palestinians initiated the violence. However, witnesses and media sources contradicted that narrative, confirming Israeli forces' use of live ammunition. It is the 7th attack on aid seekers since the Gaza conflict began. The Kuwait roundabout, where aid is delivered, has become a perilous zone for civilians desperate for essentials. So far, 160 civilians waiting for aid have been killed by Israeli live fire. The Norwegian Refugee Council highlighted a breakdown in communication between aid groups and Israeli authorities. Meanwhile, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry, 149 people have been killed and 300 wounded in the past 24 hours. At least 31,490 Palestinians have been killed and 73,439 injured in Israeli attacks on Gaza since October 7th. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer has condemned Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's leadership for obstruction of peace and prioritizing personal survival over Israel's interests. Layla Al-Abid, one of the leaders of the Uncommitted movement, urged Democrats to translate words into actions, criticizing the slow pace of change. She says while Schumer hints at using U.S. leverage against Israel, Netanyahu has already violated American policies and values. Police detain pro-Palestine protesters for blocking access to the New York Times building. Details come after the break. Stay tuned and we'll be right back. A pro-Palestine group staged a protest in front of the New York Times in Manhattan. Protesters chanted slogans in support of Palestine and blocked access to buildings. Numerous police teams arrived and detained multiple demonstrators. America's leading Jewish charity, New York's Met Council, is urging the U.S. Department of Agriculture to push for more kosher and halal options in food pantries. Recognizing the dietary restrictions of millions in Jewish and Muslim communities, it is emphasizing the importance of access without compromising religious beliefs. Congressman Grace Meng has highlighted the significance of addressing this issue at a policy level, praising efforts to incorporate such provisions into federal programs. Met Council CEO David Greenfield has stressed the need for advocacy to bridge the gap between faith and food security. The demands were made at a roundtable session featuring Meng, USDA Director Samantha Joseph, Greenfield, and more than 60 communal leaders and food pantry providers. The U.S. military has dispatched additional military reinforcements to its bases in the eastern Syrian provinces of Al-Hasaka and Deir el-Zor. According to local sources, a convoy of U.S. forces entered Al-Hasaka Thursday overnight through the Al-Walid border crossing between Iraq and Syria. The convoy, consisting of 40 vehicles, reached U.S. bases in areas under occupation by Kurdish militant groups PKK, YPG. Since 2015, U.S. forces in Syria have trained thousands of YPG and PKK terrorists in their military bases in the region under the pretext of combating terrorism. In October of 2019, during Turkey's cross-border Operation Peace Spring, U.S. forces had withdrawn from the area. Syria has been locked in a civil war since early 2011, when the Bashar al-Assad regime brutally cracked down on pro-democracy protests. A federal judge is holding officials of Flint, Michigan in contempt for failing to replace lead-contaminated pipes in the city's water system as ordered. The city's neglect violates a 2017 settlement agreement. Despite repeated warnings, Flint missed deadlines and failed to inform residents of their rights to remediation. The court rebuked the city's sluggish response, though much work has been completed. Flint's attorney, William Kim, acknowledged the city's efforts but criticized plaintiffs' fee adjustment request. The crisis prompted a $600 million settlement with ongoing lead service line replacement. The Flint water crisis began a decade ago when the city made a cost-cutting move to switch its water supply from Detroit-treated water from Lake Huron to the Flint River. The river's water goes through a local Flint treatment plant, which failed to treat the water with the proper corrosion control chemicals. That caused lead and other chemicals to reach into the city water supply. The contamination forced Flint's population of 100,000 to rely on bottled water for cooking, washing, and cleaning. Britain has unveiled a groundbreaking laser weapon system which can potentially revolutionize air defense against missiles and drones. The Dragon Fire system costs $13 per shot, compared to the conventional air defense price tag of more than $2 million per shot. The system, showcased through a successful test, boasts precision targeting and immense cost savings compared to traditional interceptors. It can effectively engage targets over long ranges and presents a significant advancement in military technology. Analysts highlight its potential to rebalance the economic dynamics of warfare, reducing reliance on expensive munitions. But concerns linger over operational limitations, such as adverse weather conditions and power supply issues. Military experts say that while the UK is not the first to develop such technology, deploying laser systems on the battlefield is necessary to combat modern threats. The International Organization for Migration, or the IOM, has appealed for nearly $119 million to support nearly 1 million Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh. The largest concentration of Rohingya migrants is in Cox's Bazar, the world's largest refugee settlement in southeastern Bangladesh. IOM Director General Amy Pope says while the world today has many crises, it cannot forget the urgent needs of the Rohingya refugees. Nearly 1 million Rohingya fled military genocide in Burma in 2017, seeking temporary refuge in Cox's Bazar, according to the UN Migration Agency. Islamic-themed graffiti has been found on nearly 60 graves in the cemetery of Dordogne in southwest France. Phrases like "submit to Allah," "Happy Ramadan non-Muslims," and "France is already Allah's" were written to deface tombstones. The graffiti included the term "Guer," meaning non-Muslim in Algerian Arabic. British newspaper Daily Mail reported the act disrupted the peace of the burial site, leaving many distressed. Public prosecutor Jacques-Edouard Andrault initiated an investigation. The incident has sparked outrage and condemnation in the community. More than 40 Uyghur migrants seeking refuge from persecution in China have been languishing in jails in Thailand for 10 years. Rights groups are urging the Thai government to resist Chinese pressure and grant them freedom. Initially, more than 500 fled to Southeast Asia, and only about 100 successfully reached Turkey via Malaysia. Thai authorities detained more than 475 in 2014, mostly from rubber plantations in Songkhla. Held as illegal immigrants, not refugees, they endure poorer conditions and lack communication with outsiders. Advocates warn of the danger they face if repatriated to China. Despite international pressure, Thailand hesitates to release them, citing security concerns. It has led to deaths among detainees. In 2015, a bomb blast killed 20 people and injured more than 100 others at Bangkok's Erawan Shrine, frequented by Chinese tourists. Thai officials believe the attack was in retaliation for China, blocking the transfer of Uyghur refugees to Turkey. Chalita Tajaronesuk, director of the People's Empowerment Foundation, says it's hard for NGOs and even Thai officials to have access to detainees. Her NGO assists Uyghur refugees in Thailand. That's all from our Toronto studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Assalamu alaikum and good night.